Hello, I'm A.D. Hobbs, and this is my review of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And this is my visual aid. This is He-Man from Master of the Universe. Because you see, I don't have any medieval knights, so I thought, well, he'll have to do. He sort of represents medieval knights, men of honour and all that. Yes, he's the closest thing I have to a medieval warrior. Oh no, not medieval, Dark Ages. Yes, the story of King Arthur takes place in the Dark Ages. I mean, for a long, long time there's been some dispute. Some historians say King Arthur lived in the year 450 AD, some say the year 600, some say the year 800 AD, and some say the 10th century AD. So we really don't know for certain, no, because it's lost centuries, lost history. But one thing that remains consistent, it was the Dark Ages. So between the year 450 but before the year 1066. Yes, this story takes place in what we now call the Dark Ages. Yeah. And He-Man here, well, good visual aid, because like the Knights of the Round Table in this film, each knight has a sword, each one has a shield, but none of them have a horse. Why is that? Well, I'll explain why. You see, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, it was on a very small budget. They were pressed for time. They didn't have very much time to finish it, so yeah. And originally, all the actors were going to be on horses. Yeah, riding majestically. Yeah, Knights of the Round Table and their noble horses, their noble steeds. But unfortunately, because of budget reasons, they couldn't afford horses. So instead, they do that funny gag where each knight pretends to ride a horse. He's running, but pretends to ride a horse. And he has a servant behind him with coconuts going cloppity-clop, cloppity-clop, cloppity-clop. Whoa there, clop, 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 clop. Onward, cloppity-clop, cloppity-clop. Dismount. Ridiculous nonsense, but it was a blessing in disguise. In a way, it's good they didn't have the budget for horses, because that's a very funny image, and it's one of the first gags we see in the film, yeah. And of course, when they get to a castle and say, I'm Arthur, King of the Britons, son of Uther Pendragon, defeater of the Saxons, sovereign of all England. Where'd you get the coconuts from? Coconuts are tropical, yeah. Nobody in England, or nobody in Europe for that matter, had coconuts in the Dark Ages. No, they were introduced to the European world much, much later, yeah. I think that's a little joke about how every now and again a historical film is inaccurate, yeah. Oh, speaking of inaccuracy, it's a sort of film you need to see more than once. And when they see the knights who say ni, well, that's like a little joke about curse words. Yes, they used to believe in those days. If you said curse words, like would summon evil spirits, yeah, and it would hurt you, it would drain the life force out of you. So they say, ni, and they're terrified. No, it's making us weaker. We will say ni to you again if you do not appease us, yeah. And then, what they're blissfully unaware of is the Knights of Ni have a weakness. If you say a word to them, that makes them really weak. It can't be done. Oh, stop saying the word. Well, how can we not say it if you don't tell us what it is? Oh, you said it again. And then Sir Robin comes and says, no, far from it. Ah, I was looking for it. Ah. And at first, when I first saw that bit of the film, I thought the knights who say near are just messing about and being silly and pretending to be weak. There is no word that makes them weaker, no. They're just making it up, just play acting. Then when I think I saw it the second or the third time, I put two and two together and realised it's it. The word that makes them weaker is it. That reminds me of when I was at school, I was told don't use the word it too often when you're writing an essay. Yeah, well, in this case, the word it makes the knights weaker, so it gives the goodies a chance to get away. But still Arthur hasn't worked out what the word is, and they keep getting weaker. He thinks they're pretending, and he says, oh, stop it! Unfortunately, this does create a little blooper, because much earlier, before that scene, the knights who say near they want something, and Arthur says, what is it that you want? He said it, and nothing happened. Oh. Well, is it because they're no longer the knights who say near? They're recently the knights who say near that scene, or is it just a blooper? Well, whatever. In a way, that doesn't matter. A minor little blooper here and there, yeah. Anyway, I suppose I must say that this pun, is a good pun. Star Trek Nemesis, this is relevant. All the Star Trek fans agree that is without a doubt the worst Star Trek movie ever, the worst thing ever to come out of the franchise. It is the nemesis of the franchise. Now, when something is the nemesis, it means either the enemy or the worst of its kind. So How apt that the worst ever thing from Star Trek is called Star Trek Nemesis. It is the nemesis of the franchise. Now, if something's the holy grail of something, that means it's really good. Like, well, here's He-Man. The holy grail of the He-Man franchise is the Eternia playset. Or the best episode of a popular TV show is the holy grail of it. The best book written by an author. That's the holy grail of his work. The holy grail of something means the best of its kind. So the holy grail of the Monty Python franchise is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So what an apt title, yeah. It's my personal favourite of the Monty Python films. And it was not the first one I saw. No, I'd seen The Meaning of Life and Life of Brian before. But there was something about the Holy Grail that nailed it. It's a really good story, good memorable characters, great gags here and there. And it's just it's the funniest one and the best acted out story, yeah. And there's a mixture of every kind of humour. Yes, there's silly slapstick humour, silly one-dimensional humour, and some quite intellectual humour as well. So there's something for everyone. This clearly a lot of thought and work have been put through this movie, yeah. And the other thing, the two main things I like about it, it's very funny. Well, that's an essential ingredient for a comedy. But also, it does sort of justice to the historical legend of King Arthur. Every now and again, there's bits that are funny, but also historically accurate. Well, here's two good examples. First of all, when some peasants don't recognise King Arthur, they don't know who he is. And they say, well, who's your lord? I want to speak to your lord. We don't have a lord. We have an idiocentric society. Put simply, that means we take it in turns to be leader and to sort of vote for him. And then he's leader for I don't know, about a half a year or something, and then is replaced like that. And we're all treated as equals. Now, when I first saw this film, I thought that's just silly nonsense, but it's a comedy. I found out recently, no, that's not a joke. They really did exist, not very many of them, but in certain parts of Europe in the Dark Ages, they did have a society that had a temporary leader, and every now and again they vote for a different one, and they have equality. Because you see, if you were a duke or a baron, to be replaced, you weren't voted for, you were killed by an enemy army. Oh, so it's not very appealing to be a lord then, is it? So instead, vote for a leader like that. So the idea of equality and voting and treating everyone as equals, that's nothing new. No, they had that idea centuries before now, yeah. But the idea of equality, it was always there. It just took a long, long time to catch on. But as I said, it was unusual. Most people thought knights and kings and dukes and barons, they were divine, chosen by God, yes, but the divine right of kings, yeah. Oh, yeah, and that bit when he says, how did you become king? Well, the Lady of the Lake, a mystical supernatural entity, distributed the sword Excalibur from the lake and decreed by divine providence that I am to be the king of all Britain. That is why I'm your king. And they laugh at him. One of the peasants said, if a woman in a pond threw a sword at me, that is no basis for a system of government. That's crazy. That's ridiculous. Yeah. So you see the modern view on views back then, very different. Yeah. And, yes, I suppose I must say, there's a joke I didn't quite get, but I got that. Well, here's a line that is not said in the film, but I'm going to say it. When they get to a castle, there's all these French knights here. Yes, England, well, we're friends with the French now, but for centuries we've had more wars with French than any other nation. So, yes. Anyway, a load of Dark Ages French people in a castle, and they ask if they can have shelter for the night. It says, no, you can't come in. You're English. Well, what are you then? We're French. And the king is like, well, what are you doing in France? Mind your own business. Well, I'm the king of England. Everything that happens in England is my business, yeah. And then the French won't let them enter the castle and say, get lost, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And the main French one says, get lost, go away, you and all of your pathetic kniggets. What on earth are kniggets? That's crazy. And then recently I found out, oh, knights, he means knights. Yes, because the way you spell knight, it's like knigget. Yes, because he's French. English is not his first language. So he says, go away, you stupid kniggets. Yes. Clearly not in his element, yeah. Oh, and here's a bit more visual aid, a little snake man here. Because Python, Monty Python, yeah. Oh, yeah, and also, in the story, John Cleese plays the Enchanter, Tim the Enchanter, And he says, we have to get to the cave, but the entrance is guarded by the most terrifying beast in the world, and it's a rabbit. And the joke is there that rabbits are perceived as cute and cuddly and wimps, basically, you know, not terrifying at all. Have they ever seen Watership Down? Rabbits can be tough, yeah, if need be, yeah. But for me, the funniest bit in the whole thing is when the beast of comes after them, and because it's a small budget, so it's a cartoon of a monster chasing them, and Arthur says, run away, instead of retreat. Run away, keep running. They run. The monster has lots of eyes, it's going to eat a lot of them, and just before it eats them up, it stays perfectly still. Because the animator suffered a fatal heart attack. That's ridiculous nonsense, and breaking the fourth wall, yes, revealing that it's not true, yeah. And another thing, about the historical accuracy, before King Arthur gathers all these knights together, he has to fight the Black Knight for the right to cross a little bridge. And basically he says, I command you as King of the Britons to stand aside. I move for no man. If you want the right to cross the bridge, we have to have a fight to the death. Except the bridge is over a very tiny river. Well, it's not even a river, it's like a little stream. You could just jump over that. Is it really necessary to fight like this? Well, it's the principle, isn't it? It's an ego thing, having the right to order someone about. Well, that's crazy. You can't fight to the death over a petty squabble like that. But again, I thought it was silly cartoon violence. But no, it is accurate. That's what they used to do in the Dark Ages. They'd fight to the death over the stupidest, silliest of principles, yeah. Because you see, knights they're supposed to be men of honour. They had power over life and death, and they're supposed to use this power to defend the country from invaders, which they did. But every now and again, they would abuse this power and use it, oh dear me, as to solve a petty squabble. Well, that's stupid. That's egotistical nonsense to the extreme, yeah. And but a big spoiler alert here, yeah. Do they find the Holy Grail? Well, yes and no, because they have to get to the castle of and when they finally get there, the French have gotten there before them and gotten the Grail. So yes, whatever the English want, the French are after as well. Yes. So yes, we've had a lot of wars with France. Yeah, and the ending. Another big major spoiler alert here. The ending is very weird and confusing in that suddenly modern day police van comes in and the police arrest all these knights everywhere. We're in the middle of something quite important here. We've got to get the Holy Grail and we'll be the most important nation the world has ever known. No, they interfere and stop them from doing that. Now, you can interpret this ending however you see fit. Is it just silly nonsense because it's a comedy? Is it something deeper than that? Is it saying that noble quest for noble knights from olden days, that has no place in the modern world? People are not interested in that anymore. Or, as the ending's saying, the police are supposed to be useful and help people in danger, but 9 times out of 10 they just interfere and mess everything up. Well, whatever. You interpret the ending however you see fit, yeah. But it is very funny, lots of great visual humour, lots of jokes here and there. And, oh yes, apparently there's a missing 24 seconds from this film, but I don't know what it is. I remember seeing a DVD once saying this is the director's cut, the missing 24 seconds. Is the 24 seconds the blackness at the end? Instead of credits, it's just music for 24 seconds? I don't know. I've yet to find that out. But I know this much, yes. Monty Python, it does do justice. Although it's surreal humour, it does make out that King Arthur was a big deal and one of the greatest kings England has ever known. And he knows a lot about swallows. Okay, well, thank you for watching. I'm Anthony Hobbs, and I'm never bored.